Jim Ferguson, founder of Freedom Train International, joins us now, I think for the first time on the Mother of All talk shows. So a special welcome to you, Jim. Let's get your answer to that poll question first. Will Farage be the next Prime Minister? Yes or no?
I think he will be, George, definitely. And it's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I mean, there's a long way to go, of course. A week's a long time in politics, and the next general election, alas, is many, many weeks away. But he's now 12 points ahead of Labour, the governing party, and the Tories are in fourth place behind Sir Ed Davey of the Liberal Democrats. Doesn't get much more ignominious than that, does it?
It doesn't, George, and it's not entirely surprising, having looked at the state of the Tory party over the last 14 years under successive Conservative prime ministers. But, you know, I think there is a potential real opportunity for Nigel Farage to take power. They're polling incredibly highly. And as a former colleague of Nigel in the Brexit party, he's a pretty determined guy. He's a smart guy. He's a great orator, like you. And I think that he will probably stomp home at the next general election. But of course, you're quite correct to say a week in politics is a long time. We've got several years to go before we see that playing out, unless something very significant was to happen where there was maybe a crisis in government and an early election could be called. And that is also possible.
Yeah, although it's much more likely an early defenestration of the Prime Minister replaced by somebody almost as bad as him within the ruling party. But you've just been in Hungary, and I read your reports from there with great interest. The Prime Minister there, Viktor Orban, he has struck an increasingly isolated figure in the EU. I sometimes think he's the only leader who's actually really standing up to what has become an EU dictatorship. I mean, we always, you and I, as Brexiteers, we always said things about the European Union which other people struggled sometimes to see, but it's out in the open now that the EU is an unelected tyranny, and the government of Hungary, with the Slovakian leadership maybe in second place, are the only people standing up to it.
Absolutely right. And just before I went to Hungary, I was in Romania campaigning on behalf of George Simeon to become president. And there's all sorts of unanswered questions there as well. You know, Romania is a great country. It was my first time there. It's also my first time in Budapest, but you're quite correct. And they, in Hungary, are being fined €1 million per day because he doesn't follow the tune of Brussels. It is a tyranny, George. You're quite correct.
€1 million a day. Is he paying the fine, or is he offering community service instead? Are they paying it?
Well, I believe they are resisting that. They're looking for other avenues to not do it. But, you know, I met members of the Hungarian parliament when I was there. In fact, some of them were quite senior members. And they're pretty tough, you know. They are pretty rock solid in terms of standing up for the people of Hungary. They don't want to be dictated to by the unelected bureaucrats in Brussels. And, you know, when I campaigned for Brexit, when you did the same, we were absolutely united in the fact that Britain should be independent. We don't need an unelected bunch of bureaucrats in Brussels dictating what we should be doing or not doing in the United Kingdom. And indeed, there is a growing feeling across the European nations that is unacceptable. And what we saw with the election interference in Romania, it goes to show that democracy itself is not being respected by those running the EU itself. Ursula von der Leyen and her ilk are nowhere near being democratic in their policies.
No, in fact, von der Leyen and others in the top ranks of the European Union are the grandchildren of literal Nazis. And they are behaving increasingly like them. And the Romanian case in point that you just cited, no one actually pays it all that mind, but in truth, We've never seen anything quite like this before. Simeon was so far ahead in the first ballot that Grok estimated that the percentage possibility of him losing the second ballot was less than 1%, and yet lose he did. And he was only even in the election because Georgescu, who was miles ahead in the earlier election, was disqualified by a group of judges, and the Romanian people were robbed of their right to elect him as president. Why are they so desperate to get a puppet in Romania, do you think, Jim?
Well, they're desperate because Romania under George Simeon would not follow the diktats of Europe. He would put the Romanian people first, which is why I supported him. I support all national leaders that put their countries first, those that stand up for the people, their rights and their wishes. And that will not happen under Nicolae Sardan. He is a puppet of the EU. He is a placeman. He's an administrator for globalist policies. And he will do no favors to the Romanian people. And one of the things that we saw was a massive interference from Macron. Durov, who heads up Telegram, made it very clear that he was willing to go and testify. And George Simeon and his campaign team and his legal team actually asked for the election to be investigated because the results, as you've quite correctly pointed out, were so askew. Just 2 weeks, he was polling 40.8%. And all of a sudden, it turned around and the cursor down won, so-called win. But the thing is, that doesn't add up. And whether Grok says it or whether another chat program says it, the point is the people were saying it. There was unprecedented levels of support in Romania. I saw that. I spoke to the people on the ground, in the streets, in the rural areas. And there is no question of it. That election was stolen, in my opinion.
Now they're trying to get rid of Orban in Hungary, and there are some signs that his popularity is dipping. The Trojan horse of European Union NGOs are, of course, teeming in Hungary. If you look up it's a very beautiful city, Budapest, as we now both know. If you look up any old mansion buildings, there's a plethora of brass plates, clearly funded by the West, by the European Union. They're obviously looking for the possibility of bringing him down. Did you get a sense of that when you were there?
Absolutely, yes, for sure. What you're saying there is 100% accurate. Of course, Viktor Orban knows that. His parliamentarians are aware of it. George Soros and his NGOs were effectively ejected, along with other nations like Russia, to good effect, but they're still around. And there are others who are looking to bring Orban down because he is a strong leader. They don't want strong, nationalistic, sovereign-minded leaders in charge of countries. What they want is World Economic Forum, globalist administrators running these countries so that they have the command and control. And they don't like decentralized power. They want centralized power at all times, run from Brussels. But, you know, Viktor Orban and his team are very aware of what's going on. And, of course, Poland and many other nations support him. I was at CPAC as well, George, for a few days there in Budapest. And there is massive amounts of international support for Viktor Orban. He spoke at CPAC. He was joined by many guests there. And there's a general feeling that because it was titled The Age of Patriots, I think it was a brilliant title. And I think it is showcasing the fact that patriots around the world, as I've been discovering with my own movement, Freedom Train International, is attracting massive support there. So the globalists are going to have a fight on their hands, but we must never underestimate them. They're cunning, they're dangerous, and they're utterly ruthless.
Well, as I said in the beginning, we're not on the same side politically, though we do share common enemies, and the globalists are definitely among them. One globalist leader, and I want to talk about a second in a minute, but one globalist leader that's definitely not a patriot and definitely not a leader, and that is Emmanuel Macron. We now know who wears the breeks, as we say in Scotland, the trousers, in their household, who packs the biggest right hook. It's Mrs. Macron. She's not as nice as she looks. He is presiding over a rapidly diminishing political base, and yet his main opposition is now legally banned from running for president at the next presidential polls, leaving open the possibility that with around about 19 or 20% of the poll at the moment, he could still be back in again, or his party might nominate another. How do you see the situation in France? I ask because I saw your statements about the human zoo that was on the streets of Paris last night, in which people were murdered. I've watched videos of people actually lynching other people. There were hundreds of serious injuries and hundreds of arrests. And this was celebrating a victory for the Paris team, well-deserved one, in the Champions League final. But it wasn't really about football, the events of last night, was it?
It wasn't, George. It's horrific to see, and I echo those sentiments of disgust at what we witnessed there. You know, the French people are great people. I love them, and I love all the Europeans. But they are indeed facing massive destabilization by Macron. He is a globalist through and through. He doesn't care about them. I witnessed the Gilets jaunes movement, the yellow vests. They were brutalized. The farmers, those that grow the food, that produce the crops, and farm the animals, once again, they're being sidelined. There is major problems in France right now. And Marine Le Pen, you know, is a strong leader. She would probably win against him if we were being really honest about it. And I think that this whole lawfare that we're seeing being perpetrated against nationalistic, patriotic leaders is the game plan that the globalists use to destabilize and take out their political opponents. But it's not game over yet. France is witnessing unprecedented chaos in the streets of Paris right now, but it isn't just confined to Paris, George. It is potentially going to spread further. And indeed, the entire West is a powder keg right now. You know, there is so much going on. But Marine Le Pen is a fighter. She's a patriot. She's a warrior. I have huge respect for her, and I hope that she can overcome this legal challenge and at least stand and run to become president of France. I will certainly be supporting her in that mission.
Well, they might use this lawfare against Farage to return to him, mightn't they? The Reform Party are warning of unprecedented buffeting and attacks to come. I mean, you and I both know, Nigel, it wouldn't be that hard to find something you could trump up a charge on.
George, we're all vulnerable to that. You, me, Nigel Farage, and I remember you defending Nigel a number of years ago, just before the Brexit election took place. And I think you were responding to an interview you were doing, and they said, well, Nigel Farage is a fascist and he's far right and all of these things. And you quite adamantly said that you had been around the political circuit for a long time. You have huge knowledge of Nigel, and you've met him personally. And you said he's not a fascist, he's not a racist, he's a populist. I remember the words distinctly. And yes, he is. But of course, when the globalist movements start to feel threatened, they are quite capable of targeting individuals that they see as a potential threat. He is like a rock star. When I was campaigning in Barnsley East in the target seat there, he came up on 2 occasions. And he does have a magnetic draw. People are attracted to him, and his power of oratory and his charisma is second to none. So there is always that possibility that he will be targeted in a similar fashion. But once again, he is a fighter. And I think he would be the kind of change that the country needs. I'm not a member of any political party now, George, but I'm watching very closely what is happening to the fortunes of Reform UK, and they are making headway. And of course, we've still got several years to go before the general election takes place. But I think he might be the change that's needed. At least he would put the people of the United Kingdom first for a change.
Finally, Starmer, who's the other side of the coin, or the other cheek of the arse to Macron, he's in deep trouble now, isn't he? Social problems, as you say, this powder keg. I feel it myself. If this event in Liverpool, for example, had been committed by an Islamist extremist, we'd probably be in Britain right in the middle of horrific events. As it is, we don't quite know what happened there. I don't know if you have any insight on that. But Britain is a powder keg, and we've got a Prime Minister far more interested in wars abroad than he is dealing with the crises, multiple crises that exist at home. What's your reading on him?
Oh, I don't think he's going to last, but what is the alternative? They will have somebody else ready to take his place. I'm quite sure Angela Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, is busy slavering in the mouth to take over as Prime Minister. I think she probably would be as bad, if not a whole lot worse. Starmer is a traitor to the United Kingdom. He's a traitor to the working class. We just go back to a point that you made, George, about us not necessarily always agreeing on certain things, and that's true. But you might be surprised to know that actually I probably agree with about 80% of what you talk about, especially when it comes to putting the working classes first and giving them the support. Starmer is a betrayer to the working people of this country. Sir Keir Hardie would be spinning in his grave if he came back and saw what the Labour Party has become. And in fact, the Labour Party and the Tory Party are just uniparties. They're no longer Tory, they're no longer Labour. There's something else that serves foreign interests, usually from Brussels' points of view. So I don't know that he's going to last the full term. I think the 3 Ukrainian young boys who apparently set fire to his property, I think there's a lot more to come out about that. I think there's a lot more to come out about Starmer, full stop. But I pay tribute to you and to Moats Television for all the work that you're doing, George. I'm glad to have been on with you, and I certainly follow what you're saying, and I appreciate the work that you're doing to highlight these important issues. And let's hope that we don't see an escalation in Russia. That provocation that Ukraine just did is probably one of the most serious. I was watching your comments earlier on in your Twitter feed when you said that this could be the Pearl Harbor or this could initiate a massive response. The only true path is the path to peace, and I just wish that President Trump and President Vladimir Putin would be allowed to bring it to a conclusion. Zelensky doesn't want peace, Starmer doesn't want peace, and neither do the European globalist elites either. But let's hope that cooler heads prevail.